Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins, and this was just sent out by Better Dwelling right now. I was on my computer, I was packing stuff to ship out, and I got this. Let me just wet my beak here with some water. What is going on? Canadian households are piling into mortgage debt even as consumer debt slows. So, let's rephrase that. Let's look at that. Canadian households. So we're looking at independent households GDP, or independent households income, or independent households books. What do I mean by books? Financials. Now, they're piling on more mortgage debt, which is via second mortgages, HELOCs, maybe even getting an unsecured loan because they own a house. They're a better asset, even though they're not securing it on the property. People that do sign for unsecured loans have a better chance when owning a house, even as consumer debt slows. So, consumer debt slowing down, what does that mean? Well, consumers aren't spending. And remember that consumer confidence is down the lowest it's been since 1975. It's the lowest it's been since then. And then again, it goes back into 81, 82, when consumer confidence really took a big punch in the gut. And then it goes back to 93, 94, I think it was. And then it goes back to 07, 08. And then it goes back to... So they're trying to keep this Ponzi going. They understand how many people lost those times. Or basically, lights out, basically. And that's what's happening here. So a lot of people the banks have been trying to create these Ponzi schemes to keep going as far as possible, to line as many pockets as possible. Anyways, let's get to the article here. Canadian households are still into debt. Again, I have to say this, I have to stress this. We are a debt-building society. We are no longer building wealth. I did a whole Mike in the Night show on Saturday. It's up on the channel. Where it's discussing wealth building, the importance of wealth building. We used to be a wealth building nation. We never had these problems 20, 30 years ago. People worked for what they acquired. They never went into debt to buy a microwave or a VCR or a fridge. Nowadays, the younger consumer is more like, we're more comfortable with debt nowadays. Look, I already have $80,000 in student loan debt. You have one life, buddy. Life expectancy is 72? Why are you... Oh, God. Anyways, Canadian households are piling into mortgage debt even as consumer debt slows. Canadian households are still into debt. Just not if it's for anything other than a house. Bank of Canada BOC data shows household debt reached a new high in September. Most of the debt growth is mortgage related, with a pace of borrowing accelerating while consumer credit advanced. The pace of growth continues to decelerate. Canadian households owe $2.24 trillion in debt. Man, that's more than what Canada's, I think, total debt is to like world debt or its global debt or whatever it is. Canadian household debt reached a new high, but growth is a little stalled. The balance of household debt reached $2.24 trillion in September, up $82.0 billion from last year. The increase represents a rise of 3.8% when compared to the same month last year. The pace of growth has stalled as consumer credit growth continues to stall. Here is the annual percentage change total debt held. Here it is, 82, then 75. Where is it here? Where I was saying 74 right here. That's the first one I said. Then 81, 82. And then I said 90, 91, I think 92 I said. And then 2009. So there it is right there. You could check with your recession bars. I know this one was the prelude of the dead cat bounce of July 1975. Barry White was still alive making albums. And in that year right there, 1975, is the huge dead cat bounce that a lot of people bought into the late 70s, and that's, I don't know if you guys remember 1980 when gold just skyrocketed pretty much overnight. Mortgage debt is $1.6 trillion of debt. The vast majority of household debt is tied to mortgages in Canada. So Canadian household debt, right, guys? Remember, household debt, right? This is a combined family, right? If you live alone and you're in debt, whoo, mortgage debt represents 1.6 trillion of September balance, up 63.8 billion from last year. This represents an increase of 4.2% when compared to the same month last year. The accumulation in September is also 16.7% higher than the last year. Mortgage debt grows in acceleration despite the demands for loser borrowing criteria. What's loser borrowing? Borrowing to buy a microwave oven or a blender when you could just buy it with your earnings. What are you working for? Canadian household debt outstanding in dollars. Here it is, guys. And here's consumer debt in millions. It goes up. Wow, that's a lot, man. And then here are your recession bars here, of course. And then here is your mortgage debt in millions. So that goes into the trillions. 1.6 trillion right there. Where is that? Right there. 1.6 trillion. And that puts you at 631 would put you at 638 billion. 63 billion, sorry, 63 billion right there. 63 billion right there. Consumer credit growth is slowing. You don't say. Canadians are shying away from consumer debts, which is slowing in growth. So economically, it's slowing in growth, even though we have these huge job numbers of public sector jobs, which nobody really cares about because it's the private sector that's suffering, when instead of spending billions of dollars on government expenditures, frivolous spending, they should spend in small businesses. The balance of consumer credit reached 639 billion in September, 18.2 billion from last year. This represents an increase of 2.9% when compared to the same month last year. Consumer credit growth is around 21.6% slower than it was during this time last year. It's unusual for consumer credit to slow while mortgage credit grows. Canadian household credit change. Here it is, guys. So credit change, annual percentage change in debt held by Canadian households. Here it is. It's obviously taking it again back to 1974. Boom, we had the first one, 74, 75, right there. Then you had the correction or the propping, and then boom, 1982. That's when gold started to go nuts in 80, 81, 82. Then boom, back to good brighter lights in 86, 87. And then, boom, 90, 91, and things just drop in there. And then look at this recession. This is the slowdown we've been going through right here. This is the stagnant right here, the stagnation that's been just growing and just this horrible. So it actually starts right here in January 2008, and it starts building itself. If you want to get really technical, when things were really good, the poop hit the fan in July 90. July 1990 is when things really started to, and then things never really fully recovered here, with all the stock market swindling and fake executions and all this crap that's been going on, and banks overnight rates not being locked in, and borrowing from quantitative easing in Canada, and same thing in the United States, and then bringing it down. We're not in a really good position right now, guys. So buckle down, guys. Buckle down and prepare. Weather the storm. Close them hurricane shutters, and Katie, bar the door. Cheap borrowing normally increases all forms of household credit growth. After all, the goal with cheap money is for all industries to experience growth. It does on paper. That's the thing. Think of it, okay, industries. Think of industries as housing. The same thing. People became wealthy on paper pretty much overnight if they owned their homes before the whole foreign sellout. Before we sold out to foreign entities, we actually had, people were actually growing, but then it grew on paper to a point where they started borrowing from that to keep their stuff going, to keep that story, keeping up with the Joneses. However, that's not what we're seeing happening this stage of the market. Instead, mortgage credit is accelerating while consumer credit is slowing. The divergence hasn't lasted long historically. So are money markets getting shaken? Somewhat, yeah. But are they looking at deleveraging? Are consumers deleveraging towards paying their mortgages down faster? No, they're not. So you would understand maybe in a society where people are ready to start bunkering and hunkering down and barring those windows and stuff when or closing those hurricane shutters when they pay towards their mortgage and to pay down their debt, so they have less consumer spending. That's not the case here. They're not saving money to pay down their mortgage faster. They're actually borrowing more, but consuming to eat as opposed to spending. So we're going to see, is Christmas going to save this next quarter in Australia, in New Zealand, in Canada, in the UK, and Western United States? They're hoping for a big Christmas spend. Wait a minute. Didn't they kill off Christmas a few years ago? I don't know. What are they coming back to Christmas for when it's a bad... I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you want to support this transmission, go ahead and support me on Patreon with $1 a month. Buy me a coffee. Not only that, go ahead and share this video if you want to get this out there. My videos are shadow banned. Thanks for watching.